Honorable Director, respected head and faculty members of Department of Humanities, Social Sciences and Management, respected resource persons.
So we have with us Professor Smita Jha. She's a senior professor from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. We have Professor Anil Raina, senior professor, Department of English and Culture Studies, University of Punjab. Professor Roshanlal Sharma, senior professor, formerly head Department of English and European Languages, and formerly Dean School of Humanities and Languages, Central University of Himachal Pradesh. We have with us Dr. Vandana Sharma, associate professor and head Department of English, Central University of Jammu. Dr. Narendra Kumar, associate professor, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, LNM IIT, Jaipur, Rajasthan. With us, Dr. Raj Thakur, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Central University of Jammu. Dr. Muhammad Amin, Assistant Professor, Department of English, North Campus, University of Kashmir. We have with us Dr. Isha Malhotra, Assistant Professor and In Charge Head, School of Languages and Literature, Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University, Katra. Dr. Bhatt Iqbal Majid, Assistant Professor, Department of Social Work, Central University of Jammu. On behalf of the department and the institute, I extend my gratitude and warm welcome to the resource persons who shall be the guiding lights in the present pursuit of knowledge. Thank you. तुम हुए मेहमान तो अपना बाम उधर अच्छा लगा, आज पहली बार मुझको अपना घर अच्छा लगा. I now request the organizing chair of this workshop, Professor Abdul Liman, Head Department of Humanities, Social Sciences and Management, NIT Srinagar, to present his special address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nasir. Honorable Director, Professor Akash Saigalji, respected dignitaries, participants, their colleagues, and students, good morning. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this one-week workshop organized by the Department of Humanities, Social Science and Management, National Institute of Technology, Srinagar. This is the fifth workshop that the department is organizing in the last 2 years. It gives me immense delight to see how far our department has come up in such a brief time. When I joined as the head of the department 1.5 years back, it was represented by only 2 faculty members. But today, we have not only a full-fledged faculty available, but we have started 2 PG programs and our PhD enrollment increased many folds. We collaborated with some top industrial organizations to expose our students to business and entrepreneurial environment. We organized an international conference last year, and its success led us to organize the second edition of this international conference to be held in the month of May this year. Our students visited Mumbai and UAE as a part of Young Indian delegation and represented the country at Dubai Expo 2020. On research front, our PhD students and faculty members have published their research in some top journals in the last 2 years and published a couple of books too. Some of them have also completed projects and are providing consultancy services to top organizations. In a nutshell, despite COVID, the last 2 years have been very exciting and fast-paced. I hope that with a young and dynamic team around, the department in coming years will soar to new heights. With the introduction of National Education Policy 2020, I am of the opinion that the Humanities, Social Science and Management departments in technical education institutes will take central stage, and I believe that our department is ready for that. With introduction of sociology, psychology and economics from next academic year, the department will look more vibrant and bring interdisciplinary approach to the whole institution. It is worthy to mention that none of the above would have been possible without the constant support of our worthy director. I extend my special thanks to our honorable director, who has always been supportive and inspiring for academic and research activities. I would also like to extend my cordial thanks to the resource persons who have spared us their valuable time. I hope this workshop will benefit the scholars and other participants in terms of learning research skills, and research ethics. We shall be disseminated by our invited distinguished academicians. I congratulate the organizing team led by Dr. Nasir for gathering a star team of resource persons to conduct sessions over the next 5 days. I hope that you all will learn and take away something new from this workshop. Please do provide your valuable feedback at the end to help us improve. I once again thank you all for registering for this workshop and also patiently listening to me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Nasir. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your invigorating address. I now humbly request the Chief Patron, Professor Rakesh Sahgal, Honorable Director, National Institute of Technology, Srinagar, to honor us with his presidential address. Over to you, sir.
Professor Smita Jha, resource person from IIT Roorkee, Professor Abdul Liman, head Humanities, Social Sciences and Management Department, Dr. Nasir Bhatt, organizer for this workshop, other faculty and staff members from the department, participants from different institutions, resource persons, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning, adab, shaba khair, namaste, and a warm welcome to this 5 days workshop on a very important topic. At the very outset, let me congratulate Professor Abdul Liman and his team, especially Dr. Nasir Bhatt, for conceiving the idea of holding a workshop on such an important topic like research methodologies in literary studies and humanities. Not only conceiving the idea, but also making it a reality. My congratulations to the entire team. No doubt, NIT Srinagar is a professional institute imparting education in science, technology, and engineering area. But our aim is not only to produce the technically skilled and qualified professionals, but also to go for the holistic development of these professionals, which I feel is not possible without looking at the social, cultural, literary aspects of the education. Ultimately, whatever we do it for the society. So whatever we do, it has a social impact. Whether we go for research in the space area, whether we go in the industries, or whether we go for agriculture or horticulture or any such thing, ultimately everything has a social impact. So any professional, whether he is a medical doctor or whether he is an engineer, he has to be socially conscious. He should know the impact of his research and his development. Whatever he is making for the society, whatever he is researching for the society, definitely it has to have a social impact, and he should be very conscious about it. I'm very happy that this department has taken a lead in organizing this kind of workshop, and with the help of, and I'm very delighted to see that the department has been able to contact so learned resource persons from different institutions like IIT, the Central University of Himachal Pradesh, Central University of Jammu, Central University of Kashmir, and a few other institutions. It's a great opportunity to interact and learn about each other, learn about the subject matter, and learn about how different people think about all these aspects in their own organization, and what kind of impact it is making to the community or the society next door. Similarly, every state, every UT they will have a different kind of setup. They have, people have different habits. People have different living habits. People have different, eating habits. People have different ways to communicate with each other. So it is important to learn, before we go for any scientific research or any kind of, technical research. It is very important to know what people in the community they think about that. What is the acceptability? No doubt, it is very, as mentioned by Dr. Nasir Bhatt. The research in these areas is mostly qualitative in nature. But nowadays we have many statistical tools by which this qualitative, research can be converted. It can be quantified also in some way. And then, we can, many NGOs and even UNO is doing that. They are trying to quantify the impact of, different aspects on the humankind. Recently, if we take the case of the pandemic, COVID-19, many studies have taken place. Medical doctors, they have published in their journals. The social scientists, they have published in their own journals. There are, we come across many articles in different, newspapers about the effect of pandemic on the communities and how it is impacting especially our school education, our students, our college-going students, the parents, the stakeholders, the industrialists, and all others. So I'm sure that with the able guidance and discussions of the resource persons, this is going to be a great learning experience for the participants and for the organizers as well. It will be a great learning opportunity, and I wish them all the success and a great learning experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your illuminating and inspiring words. On this note, I would like to take this opportunity to formally extend my gratitude and present a sincere vote of thanks to Honorable Director, NIT Srinagar, respected Head of the Department of Humanities, Social Sciences and Management, NIT Srinagar, esteemed resource persons, coordinators, colleagues, scholars, and participants. Thank you for being part of this session. Thank you. Now, we shall take a 5 minutes break. We shall commence our first session shortly. The session will be conducted by Professor Smita Jha on the topic Methodology, Methods and Research Designs in Qualitative Research. See you in next session after 5 minutes. Thank you. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the 5 days online national workshop on research methodology in literary studies and humanities. The present session is going to be addressed by Professor Smita Jha. Professor Smita Jha is Senior Professor of English at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. Professor Jha has to her credit scores of publications with reputed international publishers like Oxford University Press, Routledge, Bloomsbury, and Sage Publications. She has a vast experience in research guidance and has been awarded with various international fellowships. Now I request Professor Jha to begin with her lecture. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Professor Nasir.
Welcome, ma'am.
And I owe my gratitude to the Director, NIT Srinagar, Head of the Department, Humanities and Social Sciences, Head of the Department, Management Studies, and esteemed colleagues and the participants. I give my thanks, a special thank to Nasir, Professor Nasir, who has been trying very hard to organize this workshop, 5-day workshop, on a very, what would I say, challenging topic, that is research methodology. I was just watching your NIT, Srinagar, the infrastructure, and I'm so much impressed that it is so rich in infrastructure that, what to say, there is no word. But when we talk of research methodology, I think, or research endeavor, I think that the institute like NIT Srinagar can lead in research or the endeavor of research at the international level because of its rich infrastructure. Now, coming to the point that the topic of today, I mean, on which my PPT. See, we are working in IIT, we are in NIT. These are the institute, we can say research oriented institute. This is my personal experience that even teaching in such institute is based on research. You all know that IIT is an autonomous institute, and we have this privilege, this power to to create our subject. But when we form our subject, it is basically, based on the research and how it is going to help the BTech student, MTech student, that is always there in mind. So, very good morning to all the participants and esteemed colleagues. I'm here, Professor Smita Jha, to speak on research methods, methodology, and design. In a lighter mode, I want to start, with the capability of humanities people. The humanities have everything to do with human condition, understanding human nature and human problem. I'll give you the link of this, journal also. I was going through the article because it is said that English professors are famous for delving into other fields and thinking that their cane stretches over the whole intellectual domain. Expressed in a more kindly fashion, I can say that we, the teacher of English, suffer from an endless appetite for exploration. And we are less condemned to a specialization than many of our colleagues in other fields. So, delighting in the fact that we always have more books to read and more ideas to engage, we also seek to reach out to social sciences, even professional studies, where better to do this than in an honors program. See, we are in an age of science and technology. And with the advancement of science and technology, humanity is coming out of the four walls. Now we can say that humanity is beyond humanity. And that is why I started with such lines. And this is the article I'm talking about. Humanities are dead, long live humanities. This article is by Larry Andrews, who argues that the humanities are essential to the core purpose and nature of honors education in promoting the foundation of academic curiosity and intellectual vigor. See, I have a very long period of experience, and when I cite my area of interest, people generally say that it is very vast area. How could you do so? But literature has this capacity, to cover philosophy, psychology, economics, history, geography, and whatnot. Because literature is the core of any discussion. Therefore, we feel proud to be humanist or the part of humanities department. Now let us start that how to start a research work? I said that it is a challenging task. Why it is a challenging task? What are the challenges? How would you start? Because see, students are coming to IIT, cracking NET, JRF, and GATE. But even then, they have various questions in their mind as to how to start with a topic to write a good dissertation, even a paper. So when you start doing academic research, you need to equip with some basic concepts of research philosophy, because it is Doctor of Philosophy, PhD. Though, I mean, the students, the researcher, you have done master degree, you have base of master, yet you need to go for more search. So, how to move? So, the very first prominent question is that what is research? Because in your thesis, you always write it is the partial fulfillment of. Nothing is extraordinarily original. Why I'm saying that every time you read something, you read a text, you read a research, and then you come up with the gap where you feel that you need to explore what is called research. We have number of definitions of research on this earth, and some of the apt definition I'm sharing with you. Longman Dictionary, the studious study of a subject that is intended to discover new facts or test new ideas. The activity of finding information about something that one is interested or needs to know about. Second is process of finding, solution to a problem after a thorough study and analysis. Systematic inquiry that provides information to guide decision. So the question is, the moot point is research always problem solving based? Of course, yes. A big yes. The problem you feel, the unfolded aspect you digged out from your reading, that you need to answer. So as I said, that there are, definition of research on the earth, 1,000 in number perhaps, but you need to know what is research. Research. Well, when we talk of research or philosophy of research or design of research, we need to know research paradigm. What do we mean by research paradigm? What are research paradigms and what is their importance in research? Once the researcher finalizes the research topic, the next thought is about the approach or methodology to follow for the research. Again, don't confuse between methods and methodology. So there are three questions that a researcher needs to ask before the beginning of the actual research. First, the ontological inquiry. What is the reality that the researcher wants to explore and know? The epistemological inquiry. What is the ontology that is available to explore and how to reach it? The methodology, inquiry. What are the methods and procedures that will make this inquiry possible? Because you are inquiring something, you are searching for something. So, a paradigm is a worldview about how to conduct a research. Paradigm include the methodology, approach, ontology, epistemology to conduct the research. In paradigm, there can be several methodology in one paradigm, and the researcher can follow any one of that. Well, these methodologies are approaches to research that can help the researcher to conduct a systematic research. Even the humanity research, the qualitative research is a scientific research in the sense that it is objective, that it is systematic. Like, if ontology, for example, I'm sharing with you, ontology asks, does God exist? The epistemology will ask how to know that God exists. And the methodology will focus on what procedures and method one can use to find the existence of God. So, research paradigm is an interpretative framework guided by a set of beliefs, feelings about the world, and how it should be understood and studied. You read several things, but when you read for research, a particular text, a particular novel, the point of view is different, perspective is different. So, ontology, what kind of being is the human being? Ontology deals with the question of what is real. Epistemology, what is the relationship between the inquirer and the known, researcher and the unexplored. Epistemology is the branch of philosophy that studies the nature of knowledge and the process by which knowledge is acquired and validated. And methodology, how do we know the world or gain knowledge of it? So when we talk of research paradigm, well, it encompasses three-fold layer: scientific, interpretative, and critical. So scientific, interpretative, I don't think that I should discuss because scientific application of scientific method to investigation of relationship among natural phenomenon or to solve a technical problem. And scientific method is the means by which researchers are able to, make conclusive statement about their studies with minimum of bias. Interpretative research, focuses on analytically disclosing those meaning, making practices while showing how those practices configure to generate observable outcomes. Coming to the critical research that involves a formal analysis and evaluation of a text. When the humanities student write about the methodology or the theoretical framework, he or she generally writes that the approach is textual, a closed textual analysis or a closed textual reading. So analysis and evaluation of a text, production or performance. Critiquing criteria are the standards, rules, or tests that serve as the basis for judgment. Now, research paradigm that has different schools of thought. Coming to empiricism, Empiricism proclaims that experiments and observation are the main instrument for the acquisition of knowledge. That is called empirical. Though in humanities, we seldom go for empirical research. But any knowledge, acquiring knowledge is related to empiricism. Positivism, exploring social reality based on philosophical ideas with the emphasis on observation and reason as means of understanding human behavior. Scientific methods are used as a means of knowledge generation. And just now I was listening to the Honorable Director of NIT, Srinagar. He was also saying that, well, the qualitative and the quantitative method work together with the help of data available. And he's absolutely correct. Anti-positivism, social reality is viewed and interpreted by the individual according to his or her ideological position. Knowledge is a person's experience rather than acquired from or imposed from outside. So reality is multi-layered and complex, and a single phenomenon is having multiple interpretations. Critical theory, exploring an existing phenomena to develop theory. And you know that this is the reason that we go for interdisciplinary. Now we are in the area of environmental studies also, ecofeminism, eco-criticism, and most of the theory we apply, that is from social sciences, that is from sociology. And you will be surprised to know this, that sometimes even from philosophy, sociology, psychology. And this is how, the area, the corpus of humanity is going to be broadened. So as I said, that a researcher should know the significance, relevance of such terms, epistemology, to do with our beliefs about how one might discover knowledge about the world. Belief cannot be the base of your research. You need to explore more. Ontology to do with our assumptions about how the world is made up and the nature of things. Methodology, to do with the tools and techniques of research. And the relationship of the three, that epistemological and ontological positions should have some bearing on the methods that a researcher select for research. Now, what is knowledge when we talk of epistemology? Knowledge is a familiarity with someone or something which can include information, facts, descriptions, skills acquired through experience or education. And here I want to quote the famous philosopher Plato, who defined knowledge as justified true belief. Justified true belief, because you need to justify your statement in a research. Theoretical or practical understanding of a subject. That is knowledge. Implicit knowledge as with practical skill or expertise. Explicit knowledge as with the theoretical understanding of a subject. So knowledge is sometimes considered as justified true belief. However, this is insufficient because one must have a reason or justification for the belief. There are situations in which a belief may be justified and true and yet not as knowledge. Knowledge is distinct from belief and opinion. And in philosophy, the study of knowledge is called epistemology. So, what are the key elements of, you know, proper epistemology? Well, epistemology, the study of our methods acquiring knowledge, explanation how we think. When you read for research, when you go for a text, how you think that does matter. It answers the question, how do we know? It encompasses the nature of concepts, the constructing of concepts, the validity of the senses, logical reasoning, as well as thoughts, ideas, memories, emotions, and all things mental. It is concerned with how our minds are related to reality and whether these relationships are valid or invalid. We all know that epistemology comes from the Greek word epistem, that is knowledge. And it is a branch of philosophy that deals with the ratio, origin, scope of knowledge. It attempts to answer the basic question of what distinguishes true, that is adequate knowledge, from the false, inadequate knowledge. It relates to truth and belief. So, the importance of epistemology is to determine the true from the false by determining a proper method of evaluation. So, the key elements of a proper epistemology are that senses are used to gain information about the world. Reason is the method of gaining knowledge and acquiring understanding. Logic is the method of maintaining consistency within the set of knowledge. Objectivity is the means of associating knowledge with reality to determine its validity. Concepts are abstract of a specific details of reality or of other abstraction. A proper epistemology is a rational epistemology. I always advise my student that going only once to a text is not sufficient. The text you have selected for your research, at least 3 times you go through your text. Only then the real meaning will come out for your research work. So knowledge acquisition, it is a complex cognitive process, your thought process. You read and you think, your perception, your communication, your association, and your reasoning. Suppose you are working on ecofeminism. What are the criteria you are going to fix for the research? Binary position, feministic approach. What is the philosophy that is your perception, your constant dialogue, your communication, your association closely, your involvement with the topic in question, and while analyzing, critiquing your reasoning. So it is a cognitive process, it is a thought process, mental thought process. And this is all epistemology. Coming on ontology, you need to know ontology. Ontology comes from Greek word onto, which means something that exists, and logo, which means logical knowledge. So an ontology may take a variety of forms, but necessarily it will include a vocabulary of terms and some specification of their meaning. See, students are advised to take out at least 5 keywords, key terms. And even at the initial stage, I advise my student, I suggest my student that, okay, you have read the text, some ideas are there. So you first write down some keywords on the paper. And on the basis of those keywords, you go for literature review. You explore for the articles, the thesis already done on the more or less same topic. See, this includes definitions, indication, how concepts are interrelated, which collectively impose a structure on the domain and constrain the possible interpretations of terms. Terms are very important. So, the conceptualization is the coaching of knowledge, that is ontology, about the world in terms of entities constant between them. Now, it is defined as the specification of conceptualizations used to help programs and human share knowledge. So, ontology is very, very important when we tend to explore a new area of research. Now, the difference between methods and methodology is also very important, because when we are talking of epistemology, ontology, methodology, we need to know that how to decide the methods and then methodology. You see, methods are a specific approach to collecting your data or material. So this may include interviews, surveys, focus group, experiments, case studies, observational studies, online data collection. I'm also a person from linguistic background, and I've supervised thesis, PhD in linguistics. So in linguistics, we generally go for questionnaire, online data collection, interview, in a very scientific manner. So what kind of method you are going to acquire, that you have to decide before methodologies. So how are methods chosen? Because every method varies in style. And when you are going for research, it is very, very important. So you have to first ask yourself, go for introspection. What are the introspection? Because every discipline uses different methods for research. For example, like in linguistic analysis, a study on a stressed student could be examined through focus group, in the humanities, first year student, or by tracking heart rates in the science, or by, handwriting. Each of these are valid, but would generate different data. Heart rate, heart palpitation, different. Handwriting, the curve. And the style. Sometimes you need to go for a mixed method that I have already supervised. So very calculatively, very seriously, you have to decide the method, and for that, you need to explore your understanding. And what are that? Do a literature review of similar studies. And I told you that you write down 5 words, 5 key terms. If you read, the paper or the works or the dissertation on the same line, you will get some idea of methods and methodology, and then speak to your peer supervisor. Also, before collecting data or material, you just ask yourself, be candid, be honest. Do you have access to the people, resources needed? Is there a high risk level? Can you rationalize the risk level? Have you got ethics approval if it is, empirical quantitative study? Does it fit your budget or lifetime timeline? Will it create reliable data? How can you compare your data? How are you recruiting participants? Have you created consent forms? See, you have a very limited time for your research. When you enroll yourself in IITs or NIT, you are not supposed to be there for year and year. In IIT, maximum 4 years. Otherwise, after 3 years, you can submit. Maximum 4 years. After that, you won't get a stipend. Now, in this limited span of time, you have to decide everything. You have to submit your research with good publication from your thesis. So you need to ask yourself that, are you going to do something like that? Also remember that your methods are part of your entire research project. So how to plan? First, planning is very important. Plan collecting means literature review. Now we in IIT, we have pre-PhD courses. Even, from that time only, I suggest my student that if you have some idea for your research or your future research, please go for literature review. And make a rough bibliography. Don't go by alphabetically that time. Just make a rough bibliography. Write down. That will help you to finalize, your literature review collection. Then evaluate which paper is useful, which book is useful. Analyze them, in the light of your research. And then you write. Because your energy is precious, very precious, and never waste your energy. Don't. Every moment is important. Even one sentence you write, that is important when you are pursuing your research. So, planning the method is also a serious task. Coming to methodology. It is a theory of how inquiry should proceed. You know that for what you have to inquire. Now, how to proceed is methodology. It is an overall plan for studying a research question or phenomenon that is congruent with epistemology and ontology and is driven by the nature of research question itself. Because I was talking about the gap, research gap. And you are framing the question for that gap, research question. So methodology is the theoretical framework to support the methods chosen. It is a perspective taken on the research which dictates how it is approached. How it is approached. Now, coming to phenomenology, which is very important part of this, it provides us with the interpretations regarding the distinction between the internal and external world, as well as levels of objectivity and subjectivity. What you think, does matter, but is not everything in your research. What others do think about the same topic you need to know. So, phenomenology is the study of structures of consciousness as experienced from the first person point of view. Consciousness, your soul, your understanding, your inner self. Now, what is first person point of view, as I mentioned just now? First person point of view means that the phenomenologist, the investigator of consciousness, means the researcher studies his or her own experience from the point of view of living through that experience. Suppose ecofeminism, ecology, environment, and feminism, two aspects are there. But how to collaborate, that can be your understanding, that should be. This sounds a bit like introspection. But as we all see, phenomenology should not be equated with introspectionist psychology. You must check yourself, keeping with the world's view. World's view. Now, coming to critical theory, because when we talk of theoretical framework, methodology, well, critical theory play a pivotal role. Critical theory has a narrow and a broad meaning in philosophy and in the history of social sciences, even in humanities. Critical theory, in the narrow sense, designates several generations of German philosophers and social theorists in the Western European Marxist tradition known as Frankfurt School. So, according to these theories, a critical theory may be distinguished from a traditional theory according to a specific, practical purposes. A theory is critical to the extent that it seeks human emancipation from slavery, acts as liberating, from influences, and works to create a world which satisfy the needs and powers of human beings. That is why you need to apply critical theory, but in a very calculative manner. Sometimes students come to me and they ask, Madam, I want to apply 4 theory, 5 theory. I say, well, it may be very fascinating to you, but I never suggest that go for 3, 4 critical theory. Otherwise, you have to justify for each and every theory, and half of the time you spend for this only. Moreover, you cannot write in 500 pages. You should not. So you have to be very, very particular. Drawing particularly on the thought of Karl Marx or Sigmund Freud, critical theorists maintain that a primary goal of philosophy is to understand and to help to overcome the social structure through which people are dominated and oppressed. You apply, you explain, you analyze. Coming to ethnography, research is undertaken in the field and attempt to capture and understand social action and the meaning of this action. The researcher is not based in a constructed setting or experiment, but part of everyday natural situation within which those under investigation exist. See, why such a study like Dalit studies, racist study, research on rape culture, research on sexuality? Why these topics are blooming like anything? Because they are very much prevalent in the present society. So, ethnography is a research method central to knowing the world from the standpoint of its social relation. Why you are going for research? How you are contributing to the existing society? It is a qualitative research method predicted on the diversity of cultures, at home and abroad. Ethnography involves hands-on, on the screens, on the scene learning, and it is relevant wherever people are relevant. So ethnography is the primary method of social and cultural anthropology, but it is integral to the social sciences and humanities generally, and draws its methods from many quarters, including the natural sciences. So ontology covers, what we believe can exist, what we consider to be fundamental or basic. For researchers, one may be positivist or interpretativist. Epistemology is used to describe ways of knowing, how we know what we know, and who can be a knower. Ontology and epistemology provide insight into what the researcher believes to be the nature of truth, the nature of the world, and the ways of being in the world. Together, they describe the world view of the researcher, and this is very, very important. So, a good research question is essential to guide your research paper, project, or thesis. Focused on a single problem or issue, it will give you a very atomic, pointed, direction. It is researchable, with the primary and secondary sources. It is feasible to answer within the time frame. It is specific to give answer thoroughly. It is complex enough to develop the answer. It is relevant to your field or the society more broadly. So, in a research paper or essay, as a researcher, you will usually write a single research question to guide your reading and thinking. That the present paper proposed to a study or studies. The answer that you develop is your thesis statement. The central assertion or position that your paper will argue for. You cannot do research randomly. So in a bigger research project, such as thesis, dissertation, a researcher might have multiple research questions, but they should all be clearly connected and focused around a central research problem. A thesis statement is a statement that sums up the central point of your paper, your thesis. It usually comes near the end of your introduction. So your thesis will look a bit different depending on the type of essay you are writing. But the thesis statement should always clearly state the main idea you want to get access. Everything else in your writing should relate back, to the idea. So the process of your developing research question follows such states like choose a broad topic. Then preliminary reading to find out, about topical debate and issues. And for narrow down a specific niche that you want to focus on, I would say intensive, extensive studies required. And then identify a practical or theoretical research problem you are going to address. So when you have a very clearly defined problem, you need to formulate one or more questions. Think about exactly what you want to know and how it will contribute to resolve the problem. A good research question will give you the clear concept. And when you submit your proposal, don't write more than 4 or 5 research questions. Otherwise, the entire thesis will be based on question only, 4 or 5. The way you frame your question depends on what your research aims to achieve. And this is very, very important aspect. So depending on the scope of your research, you may identify, one question or more than one questions. You may also have one primary research questions and maybe sub question related to the secondary or sub question that relate to the same problem. So while framing the research question, it is our ontology that leads us to formulate the questions that become our research. Ontology and epistemology work together with the theoretical perspective of the researcher to shape the research question. I'm just trying to finish because I was told to speak for 40-45 minutes. So I'm just trying to conclude. Coming to research problem. A research problem is the main organizing principle. It represents the core subject matter of scholarly communication and the means by which a researcher arrives at other topics of conversation and the discovery of new knowledge and understanding. A research problem is a specific issue, difficulty, contradiction, or gap in knowledge that a researcher will aim to address in the research. So bear in mind that some research will do both of these things, but usually the research problem focuses on one the other. So the type of research problem a researcher tries to choose depends on the broad topic of interest and the type of research a researcher wants to do. So, why research problem is important? Because you might end up repeating what other people have already said, trying to say too much, or doing research without a clear purpose and justification. That is why research problem is important, to be focused. You need a problem in order to do research that contributes a new and relevant insight. Whether you are planning your thesis, starting a research paper, or writing a research paper, research proposal, the research problem is the first step towards knowing exactly what you will do and why. And do not assume that identifying a research problem, to investigate will be quick and easy task. No. You should be thinking about it at the start of the course. And there are generally ways, how to explore. You can go to your supervisor who can give you some topic. You can also explore some topic, or you together with your peer or supervisor, you can find out a good topic. So when you are given the topic, identify concept, terms that make up the topic statement. After discussion, theoretical research focuses on expanding knowledge and understanding rather than directly contributing to change. So you can, as a researcher, you can identify a research problem by reading recent research, theories, and debates on your topic to find a gap in what is currently known about it. So you, as a researcher, may look for a phenomenon or context that has not been closely studied, a contradiction between two or more perspectives, a situation or relationship that is not well understood, a troubling question that has yet to be resolved. Then reviewing related literature is going to help you refine how you will approach, examining the topic. You can begin by doing any or mostly related, material that is very close to the topic. Always review, the references from your most relevant research cited by the authors in the footnote, endnote, bibliography to locate related research on your topic. So this is a good strategy for identifying, important prior research about the topic, because titles that are repeatedly cited indicate their significance in laying a foundation for understanding the problem. So when we talk of, finding out the problem or literature review, so there are appropriate roles like source of criticism. Frequently, you will find as a researcher yourself reading materials that are relevant to your chosen topic, but you disagree with the author's position. Therefore, one way that you can use use a source is to describe the counter argument. Provide evidence from your own review of the literature as to why the prevailing argument is unsatisfactory, and to discuss how your approach is more appropriate based upon your interpretation of the evidence. Sources of new ideas. Why a general goal in writing, the research paper in the social sciences is to examine a research problem or in humanity with some basic idea of what position you'd like to take and what basis would like to defend your position. It is certainly acceptable to read the literature and extend, modify and refine your own position in the light of the ideas proposed by others. Just make sure that you cite the sources to avoid plagiarism. Then third is sources for historical context. Another role your related literature plays in formulating how to begin your analysis is to place issues and events in a proper historical context. This can help to demonstrate familiarity with developments in relevant scholarship about your topic. Provide a means of comparing historical versus contemporary issues and events and identifying key places, events that had an important role related to the research problem. You can use, the database to use in the case JustOr, archival journal to know about this. Sources of interdisciplinary insight. This is also very important. An advantage of using database to begin exploring your topic is that it covers publications from a variety of different disciplines. Be flexible, don't be rigid. Another way to formulate how to study the topic is to look at it from different disciplinary perspectives. So if the topic concerns immigration reform or diasporic, ask yourself, how do studies from sociological, journals found by searching JustOr vary in their analysis from those in Humanities journal? So a good in reviewing related literature is to provide a means of approaching a topic from multiple perspectives rather than the perspective offered from just one discipline. Remember to keep careful notes, at every stage, or utilize a citation management system like EndNotes or reference work. In the first draft, rough draft, you may think you will remember what you have searched and where you found things, but it is easy to forget or get confused. So most databases have a search history feature that allows you to go back and see what searches you conducted previously, as long as you haven't closed your session. You can write down also. If you start over, that history could be deleted. And one very important thing, don't be a martyr. शहीद होने की आवश्यकता नहीं है. In thinking about a research topic to study, don't adopt the mindset of pursuing an esoteric or incredibly complicated topic, just to impress the world. In reality, it does not have any real interest to you. So choose a topic that is challenging, but that has at least some interest to you. Your interest is very important, that you care about. So scientific research, it provides, scientific information theories, follows certain structural process through the step order may vary depending on the subject matter and researcher. And the following steps are very important: observation, formation of the topic, hypothesis, conceptual definition, operational definition, gathering the material, analysis of the material, test, reviving the hypothesis, and then conclusion. So the goal of the research process is to produce new knowledge. And this process takes three forms: exploratory research, constructive research, empirical research. And level of research is, that theoretical gap in PhD, improving the latest theory on research focus. There is contribution of new knowledge. It needs to. So research process involves choosing your topic, find basic information, refine your topic. See, in IIT, we have this flexibility that even before submission, you cannot change the entire subject, but if you want to change some word in your topic, you can, with the help of refining your topic. Locate and retrieve material. Evaluate relevancies of materials. Take notes. Always write. I always advise my students, don't read like this. Read like this. Because of the advent of computer, you just read in the computer. No, you write also. I'm sure that if you make notes, you still see my table is full of notes and note copy. See, it will go to your memory because you are writing. So your hand gesture and your mind connected. And it will be engraved in your brain. So always write. Always write. With this, I conclude my experience, which I have shared with you. Otherwise, nobody can claim that I am the best researcher, I am the wonderful researcher, I have command over research, because as society changes, the style of research keeps on changing with the changing in parameters. So be a good researcher. Thank you very much. All my best wishes to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Jha, for this illuminating lecture. I hope the participants will benefit from such a wonderful session. Dear participants, we are fortunate enough today that Dr. Aruni Mahapatra has joined us as a special guest in this session. Dr. Mahapatra is Assistant Professor of English in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Roorkee. He was formerly Assistant Professor at the Department of English, University of Alabama, Birmingham, USA. He is a recipient of awards and recognitions from Harvard University, Emory University, and Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, among others. a warm welcome to Dr. Mahapatra. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nasser, for that generous introduction, and also for inviting me to be a part of this workshop. I'm very happy to be able to contribute in my own small way to this 5-day workshop on literary studies and humanities. I'm also especially delighted to be speaking after my esteemed senior colleague, Professor Smita Jha, although I highly doubt if I can add anything after that exhaustive and brilliant talk by you. Thank you, ma'am. It's always enriching and enlightening to listen to you speak, and as always, I learned a lot. So with that, I'll share some slides and speak for about 5 to 10 minutes, if that's okay, Dr. Nasser?
Sure.
Okay, let me just share my slides. So is a full screen slide visible? Can someone confirm if
Yeah,
the
it
full
is visible.
Okay, thank you.
It is visible.
Thank you. So I'll keep this very brief and speak very generally. And I'll just speak briefly about how the task of research, the challenge and also the promise of research lies in the ability of managing objects, audience, and methods. And I'll speak briefly about these 3 things. What is the object? What is an object of research? In my view, objects of research can mean a wide range of things, but what they have in common is they're all pieces of evidence on which researchers apply the methodologies that they have learned, methodologies that are specific to their disciplines, in order to create new knowledge. Now, depending on the discipline from which the researcher emerges and in which the researcher has been trained, these objects can mean a wide range of things. They can be literary quotations, that is, excerpts drawn from literary texts such as short stories, poems, or novels. They can be dates. They can be the dates on which certain events have occurred, as certain historians may like to work with these dates. They can be excerpts from judgments passed by courts in various parts of the world. They can be excerpts from subject interviews, interviews conducted by the researcher with individuals who've undergone certain experiences. And they can also be excerpts from testimonials. As you can see from this selection of examples, the nature of object can be quite varied. But what is essential is that researchers have a very clear idea of what kinds of objects are required and valued by their disciplines, right? So it's important to understand why your discipline requires and values certain kinds of objects. What is the disciplinary history, and why your ability to analyze certain kinds of objects will qualify you as a researcher, right? So that is something to think about. Now, on the other side of objects in the interpretive method are something we call generally methods. Now, on one level, methods can mean the style or the manner in which you as a researcher study the chosen object of analysis. Now, I've taken the example of certain schools of literary criticism, and this is because this is a field that I'm familiar with, having been a scholar of English literature. This is method on one level. This is method at a very general and abstract level. Some examples of schools of literary criticism are digital humanities, environmental humanities, medical humanities, disability studies, close reading, and so on. This is important for you to note because every discipline emerges from a very specific history. And that history determines how that discipline functions today. It also determines how that discipline evaluates the skill and the efficiency and the competency of new researchers who are demonstrating their skills of research through their dissertation and who will soon enter the profession as junior faculty. So if you want to know how and why senior scholars in your discipline value academic research, you should know something about the history of your discipline. And once you know that history, you will also know better how to analyze and evaluate the objects that you have chosen for analysis. In this case, these schools of literary criticism will help you understand better how to analyze your chosen literary texts. Depending on your discipline, the examples will change, but you should understand how your discipline has emerged and how that history provides your discipline with unique methods of interpreting its chosen objects. Method also works on a different level, and this is something that we often don't think as much about because we think more about schools of thought, but method also involves the modes in which research is presented. Right? Now, at this level, when we think about method, what we are thinking about is things like academic writing, how discourse works, and how language works within academia. Right? On this slide, I have shown the covers of two books that I use in my course on research methodology, and I find them very useful, so I'll happily recommend these. But of course, this is a very small and in many ways randomly selected sample. There are many books that provide this kind of information, and you're free to, of course, choose whatever you find best. But I'll speak briefly about these. So the first is Kate L. Turabian's book, that is a manual for writers of research papers, theses, and dissertations. And the second is Eric Hayo's book, Elements of Academic Style. I use this combination because the first one, that is Kate L. Turabian's work, speaks about the fundamentals of research that are essential to all disciplines. Whereas Eric Hayo's book is useful because Eric Hayo speaks to scholars in interpretive humanitarian disciplines such as literary studies, but also cultural anthropology, philosophy, history, and so on. So this is just another level at which it is wise to think about methodology, because how disciplines work, how academic conventions work, how academic protocols work, that is also something that you should know as a professional researcher. Now, I'll speak briefly about audiences, and this is something that I ask students to think about all the time, which is I ask students to know and to ask themselves who they are writing for, right? If you're writing for a professional category, right, you should think, are you writing for academics or for general readers? You should also think about the linguistic category from which your readers emerge. Are they English speakers or are they speakers of vernacular languages? You should also think about geography. Are your readers going to be in India or all over the world? And the question about geography is also a question about media, because nowadays, with the internet and with social media, people have access to content that's produced all over the world. So you should think about what kind of access do your readers have? Will they be able to access the peer-reviewed journals in which you may publish your work as an article, or will it be an open source publication? I like to define research as the art of asking. Now, why is that? Irrespective of the platform or the professional context in which you're conducting your research and publishing the fruits of that research in the form of an article, what matters is how you ask your key research question, right? And it's possible to go wrong at all possible levels. And so it's important to practice the art of asking good questions at a very early stage. Right? And the questions can be of two kinds, and depending on the discipline in which you're conducting your research, you may be involved in asking questions that seek to solve practical problems, right? It can be problems such as poverty or gender-based violence or hunger or diseases in the world. These are all practical problems which need solving, and your research can be an attempt to solve these practical problems. But on the other hand, what is also equally important is your ability to ask questions that help other researchers understand conceptual problems. So just to take the examples that I took earlier, poverty, gender-based violence, disease, and other obviously recognizable practical problems that affect the real world, for each of these practical problems, there are also corresponding conceptual problems. So how do we understand poverty? What do we mean by gender-based violence? What is the meaning of gender? What is the meaning of violence? What is the meaning of disease? How do these diseases spread? What is the mechanism by which these diseases are spread and their origin, and so on? If you think about it, you'll realize that the value of research lies more in the conceptual area than in the practical area. Because if you think about it, you are all going to be thinkers. You're all thinkers. Your day-to-day job is to think and to produce new ideas and knowledge. So you can be more effective if you try to focus on the conceptual side of the problems as much as the practical side of problems. And while asking a good research question, you should also think about what possible answers that others can provide to your research question. A good research question invites interpretive answers, not factual answers. So if you find that you're asking a question and it's possible to provide facts in order to answer your question, then that is actually not a good research question. And also, it's important to think about disagreement in a positive light. If you find that fellow researchers are disagreeing with your answer to your question, then that does not mean that you don't have a good research question, because disagreement does not equal dismissal. In fact, intelligent disagreement, which is a form of engagement, is actually the testament to the value of your research. I also ask you to think about how audiences value the different kinds of thinking and writing. If you compare journalistic versus academic writing, you'll find that they are based on the management of different kinds of object and evidence. I've provided examples of journalistic and scholarly writing here, and if you wish, you can go into more detail on this. It's important to engage both academic and professional audiences, and I'll ask you to think of the divide between popular and academic writing as more imagined than real. And I give the example of Merv Emre, who's a professor at Oxford University, but was also a staff writer at the New Yorker magazine, as an example of managing and utilizing both of these different worlds in a very powerful manner. With that, I will conclude my remarks, and I hope this has been useful, and I welcome any thoughts, questions, and comments from the audience.
If there are any questions, you may ask. All the participants are requested to write their questions in the chat box. Any questions? Or you may raise your hand so that we can have a real-time interaction with you.
Well, a question about research and no question, what does it mean? Come up with some query.
Okay, there is a question, ma'am, from Nancy Sharma. So, Miss Nancy, you may ask the question.
Hello, good morning, Pam, and thank you, the organizers, also for giving us the space to kind of listen to one of the two professors of mine, and thank you, Aruni sir, as well, for such a wonderful session. My question was more in terms of the interpretive, like the interdisciplinary aspects of research, and how should we kind of try to incorporate the various methods of two different domains when it comes to kind of writing thesis and all. It was my question is more in terms of how do we try to incorporate within our research two different methods in terms of when we are kind of trying to figure out the two different disciplines, or when our research is catering to two different disciplines per se. So if that makes sense, ma'am, or...
So may I?
Ma'am.
Yeah, so Nancy, thank you for your question. And this is one of the burning questions, in the present age. And in the initial discussion of mine, I mentioned that because of the advent of science and technology, humanity is beyond the wall of humanity, which humanity, with earlier it was under the four wall. Now, the question is that you have posed, that how do we accommodate or incorporate the two style? Since humanity has explored other area also, that is why I started with the long live humanities. See, like I gave the example of ecofeminism. Professor Aruni has given the example of medical humanities. See, literature comprises almost all the areas. Suppose medical humanities, the medicine and the narratives of the patient, that is the autopathography. So we go for these two and then applying the theory, like standpoint theory, like the gaze theory, that is very important in medical humanities. Taking from social sciences, we are not thinking that it is from social sciences, rather we are thinking or adapting it is applicable to the study or not. Your point of view and your flexibility, these two things are very important. Remember, in my discussion, I said that research is not your belief, justified belief. That is a very, very open perception in the order of the world. We cannot pursue research, in the four wall or putting only our own idea. Your mind is not the map or the reality. When we start thinking in this way, that our mind, the researcher mind, is not the reality. Rather, suppose I ask you to define ethics, any one of you, I'm sure it is very difficult to pinpoint ethic, because for me it is something else, for other maybe something else. But how to accommodate in a study, social sciences, philosophy, you need to categorize certain point in the form of, questions and then applying theories. And then you justify. For that, you need to know the subject matter. And as Professor Aruni has also rightly added, the audience, that you add this, and then where you are standing in the society. Whether it is medical humanities, you yourself working on amnesia, dementia, forgetfulness, memory study. See, it is very, very much related to the cognitive study also. That indicates, the psychology subject, the psychoanalytical study also. So, to justify the subject you have chosen or justify your position as a researcher in the society, you need to apply theory to make your research relevant to the society. Well, this is from my side.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have another question from Apurva Raj. She's asking, how do we determine the optimum number of questions that can be added in a questionnaire?
Okay. This also I discussed. What is name? Rahul.
Apurva Raj.
Apurva, I have discussed this also. See, when you go for intensive or extensive study, right? You read and you read and you read related to your topic. Automatically, I mean, your perception will be clear every time. That is why I said not once, twice, maybe 4 times. And every time you write, you see, differences, and then you read other literature reviews, first sources, second sources. Questions will be come up because you have to hit upon the area where your involvement is required. So question can be maximum 4, 5, 6, not more than that, because the reason behind that, you have to complete your research in a limited period of time. Like, and in our IIT, we have the page number is also there, 200 pages, not more than that. Now, sometimes it is very difficult to justify a thesis from humanity discipline to write in 175 pages. Is there any something in your NIT, Dr. Nasi?
Yes, ma'am.
Restriction of pages? Do you have such restrictions?
No, we don't have as such any kind of restrictions, but it is understood that it has to be limited and it has to be kind of readable thing, ma'am.
Yes, because when you write in 300, 400 pages, that research cannot be called research. Research should be precise. It is very precise to the point. So, when you are deciding 4, 5 questions, it means you are very, very focused person. You are a focused researcher. Otherwise, every time you raise a question, means you yourself are confused because you are finding out the question. So reading, rereading, extensive reading, intensive reading, literature review, primary source, secondary source, and then you decide 4 or 5 questions that will show the focus of your study. This is my summation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have another question from Haika Naushin. She wants to know the relevance of prison narratives or prison writings in literature, as well as the methods that one should be employing in conducting such a research.
Prison writing, prison.
Yes, prison, jail.
Prison, yes. See, I have also supervised a research on criminology. Prison, more or less, crime fiction, criminology, So when you decide, like I supervised the novels of Graham Greene, which
I think she here means the books or any sort of literature written by those who are imprisoned. For example, Faiz Ahmad Faiz wrote his prison diary.
Okay, so you want to know about the autobiography, right?
Autobiography or any sort of literature written in the prison, maybe a revolutionary kind of thing.
Well, that I haven't supervised till this date. I will also look into it. That a person who himself is in prison, that will be more empirical study. Though I have suggested my student, one of my students who is working on rape culture, because I was going through some time back the writing of a girl from Washington D.C. who came to India to take interview from the person who was under the jail because of the rape. It was very interesting. And then he wrote a very detailed, data narrative about that person and psychology. So this such kind of research till this date I haven't supervised. But yes, I'm trying to, because one of my scholars is working on rape culture in India, and I suggested her that you go for both qualitative and quantitative, go for some interview also. You try to get first-hand experience. Similarly, one of my students working on sexuality, queer study. So I said, well, on what basis you are pursuing? You also, reading book is not suffice. So you just go and interview some of the person, like transgender, lesbian, homosexuality, and then you write as the first-hand experience. So I am exploring this area yet.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So, is there any other question from any participant? Please write it down or raise your hands. Oh, there is a query from Taran Jandial. Taran wants to ask how to choose the journal.
See, that I also suggested that suppose you are taking some debut novel, some text of your interest, and you want to work on particular area, you start exploring the key term that I told you, key term, write down some key term. And with the help of that key term, you type on Google, you can find out journals also. Journal related to your subject. So to get the, topic related, key terms are very, very important. Whenever you submit your research paper, that time also you will be advised to give key term. So knowing the key term, you can explore journal and the related sources.
Okay, ma'am. We have another question that is a similar one. It is from the YouTube live stream link. Shikha Singh wants to ask how to find the right research paper for our literature review and what points should we consider while choosing them for our research purpose.
What to write for literature review?
Yes, how to find the right research paper for our literature review and what points should we consider while choosing them for our research purpose.
I mean, more or less the same.
It is the same question.
You see, I told you don't be martyr. Sahi होने की जरूरत नहीं है, because each and every second of yours very important. So be focused, decide, and be particular. For that, you should have some background. Suppose you have, what is this, ma'am? How to responses to review? Okay, I'm coming to this also. So when you have something in your mind, key term, key area, focus point, then you start literature review. And you are fortunate enough because you are in an age where you have everything. Computer, Google, archives, everything, and you can jot down. I told you during my discussion that prepare a rough bibliography. That I also advise my students. Prepare a rough bibliography and consult that. And always keep in writing. That will help you. That will save your time also. And that will help you to, develop your paper. I think that I have given you the answer because key terms are very important.
Thank you, ma'am.
Then one is that how to review it. See, journals from Routledge, they have 3 reviewers. So if reviewer asks you to improve something, you must improve something. And you will get the review comment also. You improve it and then send. If you get a good review comment, no problem. But then you need to reply to the review if they want to acknowledge something or to justify something or to explain something.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. There is another query. What can be the challenges or problems a researcher faces in online resources? As we see, researchers are becoming dependent on online sources for their research. Challenges or problems a researcher face in online sources?
I don't think that challenges, because if the online is not there, online researchers, I don't know. I mean, what do you mean? You mean that pursuing research, PhD research online? Yes, that can be, because meeting your supervisor, your peer face to face, that is a kind of boosting up energy. You are going to library, sitting there reading, that is also a kind of enhancing energy. But while consulting online material, that is a kind of boon, because online is something that will give you maximum in a minimum. But yes, of course, online research is not possible in the sense that it will create, because your supervisor is the torch bearer, your peer is the torch bearer. So you need to go to your supervisor, as I have, for example, at least twice in a week. You come, you sit, you discuss what you are doing. I keep on asking. So such kind of bond is very important. Human bond discussion.
Okay, ma'am, one participant, Krishna Kumar, has raised his hand. He wants to ask something. Mr. Kumar, you may ask the question.
And
Good morning, madam.
Yes.
My question is, what are the difference between qualitative and quantitative research?
See, qualitative is a textual analysis of the text, theoretical approach, but quantitative is empirical, based on data, entirely on data. That is more scientific, more technical. In humanities, we always go for qualitative, not empirical. But yes, now in the age of this interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, we go for the hybrid form also. But this is the basic difference, qualitative and quantitative.
Yes, madam. I need one more in the clarifications needed from your answer. For example, let us consider in a sugar. The sugar consists in a two character. That is in a qualitative character and quantitative character also. When we are weighing that sugar, we are measuring the quantity. When we are tasting the sugar, we are measuring the quality. In the research oriented, how we are differentiating in the basis of numerical data.
The voice is not very clear, Dr. Nasir.
His voice is breaking, and he's talking about the physical quality or the
What ethical?
physical quality of maybe sugar. I guess I was not able to hear him perfectly, but he's trying to. He has kind of understood the qualitative research in terms of the quality of things.
No. Qualitative is a textual, and of course you should maintain the quality, but qualitative is the textual analysis, as Professor Aruni has also mentioned. Unlike this scientific, we are in IIT and NIT, so we know, because the engineering or the science research is totally different than that of humanity. So, Dr. Nasir, I would like to leave because we have another meeting.
Yes, sure, ma'am. So,
if any question, you can give my email ID. I would be happy.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. And we would love if you share your PPTs.
Yeah, sure. I will.
Both you and Dr. Mahapatra, if you are comfortable sharing your PPTs with the participants, that will help. Yeah. Okay. Keeping in view the time constraints, let us call it a day. I now request Dr. Jaya Srivastav to kindly present a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Humanities, Social Sciences and Management and the organizing committee of this workshop, I would like to express my deep gratitude to our Honorable Director, Professor Rakesh Sehgal, for gracing the inaugural session with his sheer presence and sharing his invaluable insights with us. Without his support, it would be impossible to conduct a workshop like this. We express our heartfelt thankfulness to Professor Abdul Liman, head of the department, for encouraging and nudging us into organizing these types of events. Without his support, encouragement, and motivation, it would have been rather difficult to see a workshop of this scale. Our special thanks go to our esteemed speaker of today's session, Professor Smita Jha, for accepting our invitation at such short notice. Her knowledge in this field is par excellence, and it was really enlightening to listen to her. I also thank Dr. Aruni Mahapatra for giving specific insights on research. I hope Professor Jha and Dr. Mahapatra will continue to collaborate with our department in the future also and contribute to the future building of our society. I am thankful to my colleagues Dr. Nasir Bhatt, Dr. Tahir Wani, Dr. Nufazil Ahangar, Dr. Muhammad Rafiq Teli, and Dr. Sumaira Jan, and our research scholars Shivani, Shaista, Uzma, Haika, Sabah, and Asma for their relentless efforts for the success of this workshop. My special thanks go to Hadi and his team for their technical expertise and coordination in live streaming the event on YouTube. Last but not the least, I am thankful to all the participants for showing interest. I am sure in the next few days you will gain substantial and helpful insights from the distinguished panel of experts who will speak on various aspects of research methodology in literary studies and humanities. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, the entire team, the main organizer, Dr. Nasir Bhatt, Honorable Director, Professor Sehgal, your head of the department, Professor Abdul. Well, I would be happy to collaborate with you all, and as Dr. Nasir shared initially, that you people are going to start MA classes. Well, this is very tempting because when I have more than 20 years of MA experience, PG experience, unfortunately we couldn't start, in IIT, though in economics we have MSc in economics, but in English we keep on planning only. So in your endeavor of this, I would be happy to part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank
Shall
you
I
all
give it
participants. Thank you very much. See you again tomorrow. All the participants are requested to show equal interest in all the sessions, which will be very, very interesting. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Shall we end this, ma'am? Okay.
Hello, sir.
Ah,
Hello.
जी सर हाँ हाँ सर हम निकल रहे हैं ठीक है